Welcome, everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're tuning in from. While we give a little moment for people to log in, please do in the chat just share where you are tuning in from so we can get a sense of who's with us and what constellation we are forming around the globe. It's always great to see who's here. We've got Baltimore, Maine, all right, Lennox, we got some locals to Kripalu, Pittsfield, hey, Ontario, Michigan, Long Island, Cali, hey, Brad Mallory. Awesome, so great to have you all here with us. My name is Iset Rose. I am the Director of Creative Strategy and Programming for Kripalu. Also holding the container with me is Miles and Autumn, and you can feel free to hit up Miles or Autumn in the chat if you're having any trouble with your sound or any elements of this evening, and they'll be able to support you. And we're so excited to be here. So welcome to Amplifying Voices of the Global Majority. This experience has been made possible by the generous support of Kripalu's donor community, and we are so incredibly grateful. It allows us to put and give you this amazing content at no cost to you while still being able to support and uplift these amazing teachers and their work. So Amplify is a series that we're all really excited about. Kripalu has joined forces with change makers around the globe who work to dismantle inequity and harm, steward the planet, prioritize collective wellness, and stress interdependent liberation. Throughout history, voices of the global majority, Black, Indigenous, people of color have been at the forefront of breaking down barriers of systemic issues that affect both the planet and humanity and ushering in radical change, whether that's been bringing yoga to the West or fighting for justice on the front lines. And now is a time that requires us to listen, to heal historical wounds and do something different. So we enter this work as an act of community care because none of us can be well unless all of us are well, and none of us can be free unless all of us are free. So we're super excited for this series. This is number 2. And last week was amazing if you were there. And so tonight's going to be also incredibly amazing. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we are on. It is with deep gratitude and humility that Kripalu acknowledges that we are working, practicing, and gathering on the ancestral and unceded homelands of the Mohican people, who are the indigenous peoples of this land. And we actually kicked off the whole series last weekend with 2 members of the Mohican people. So it was really a beautiful way to commence. And today we are journeying into embodying liberatory healing through inner and outer awareness with Seher Sikander and Eniafe Adewale. Seher is a writer, artist, facilitator, storyteller, and creative strategist dedicated to weaving values of healing and social change through art, media, culture, and community. By blending an array of tools that engage meaningful self-inquiry, transformative dialogue, body-mind practice, and creative self-expression, Seher's work guides us through explorations of our awareness to help deepen our connections within and without. Eniafe Adewale, in a line, Eniafe is a woman breaking into herself, equal parts thought leader, creative, and strategist. Eniafe has made a career out of bringing ideas to life. Her leap into independence began at the age of 16 when she journeyed 3,000 miles from home to take advantage of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to study in New York City with the world-renowned Dance Theater of Harlem. After graduating with a degree in sociology from Fordham University at Lincoln Center, Eniafe began her tenure at Rush Philanthropic Arts Foundation. In 2016, Eniafe established EXI Concepts, an independent agency offering creative direction and production solutions for live experiences and visual content. In 2018, she took on perhaps one of her biggest personal endeavors and founded All Her Words, a journey-telling platform dedicated to honoring the voices and experiences of a fuller spectrum of women. Currently residing in Los Angeles, California, Eniafe continues to bring her work and wisdom to life through various offerings and enjoys exploring the full breadth and depth of her creativity through writing and visual storytelling. So as you can tell from these amazing bios, there's going to be a lot of creative juices flowing this evening as we get into the embodiment of liberation through inner and outer awareness. So before we move into the program, let's just all take a moment to settle here together. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and just start to tune into your breath. There's nothing to do, just feel where you're breathing. Are you breathing shallow? Are you breathing deep? Allowing yourselves to arrive in this moment, coming from wherever you're coming from, to release all the moments that led up to this one today and all the things you may have to do later. To just be here now. Really feeling into the sensations of your body and bringing your awareness to your feet, your legs, your belly, your chest, your back, your arms, your hands, your shoulders, your neck, your jaw, your eyes, your head. Just noticing sensations, or tensions, or pains, and just breathing deeply into those sensations. Maybe sending a little compassion, love, gratitude for this incredible body. Your organs, your heart that beats, your breath that breathes. This intelligent, wise instrument that houses your soul. Supported by the earth. The cosmos. Now bring your awareness to your heart. Front of the heart and the back of the heart. Really breathe into the back of the heart, the place where we receive. Creating some space and allowing and preparing your body to receive this experience. And we'll take one more breath in together. And release with a sigh or a sound. Slowly allow your eyes to flutter open. Come back into the space. Begin this amazing journey this evening. On behalf of Kripalu, welcome. It's an honor to be with you all. And I'm welcoming in Seher and Eniafe. If you would please introduce yourselves, share with us your preferred pronouns, and also your culture, your heritage, the lands that you and your ancestors are from, and maybe the lands that you're on if you so feel called. Thank you all. Have an incredible evening.
Hi. It's really nice to be here. I've been looking forward to this. Thank you so much, Isit. I feel great. That was such a lovely meditation and welcoming and just on so many levels. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much to the Kripalu team for holding us down here. And I'm Seher. My pronouns are she, her. And my cultural ancestry is Pakistani. Both of my parents are Pakistani immigrants, and I was born and raised in the United States between the East and West Coast. And presently, I find myself on Ohlone land, also known as the Bay Area.
Hello, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Iset, for that wonderful, just like grounding. And thank you, Kripalu. My name is Eniafe Isis Adewale, and my heritage is Nigerian American, and I currently reside in Los Angeles, California. And so I think we're going to just jump right into it. Yes, Seher?
Launch in. All right, let's do this screen share Zoom thing. All right.
So we're going to screen share just an overview of our presentation so that you know what we're going to be going through this evening. And so I'll take you quickly through the schedule overview. So we've already completed our welcome and acknowledgement and introduction to ourselves. And now we're going to be going into our discussion and lecture portion, which will start out with the inner and outer awareness, technical and personal definitions, true awareness and liberation, our personal philosophies, and end with our personal experiences with awareness. Then we will go into our writing instruction, and then into writing time, sharing, and we'll end with conversation and Q&A. So I can read through just really quickly the description. This will be a philosophical exploration of the significance of cultivating inner and outer awareness as a means of collective healing and liberation. This session is meant to serve as a foundation from which we deepen self-understanding through creative exploration and expression. Through the use of mindful writing practices, we will come together to explore, share, and experience liberatory healing through self-discovery and communal connection. And so now we will jump right into it. So inner and outer awareness, technical and personal definitions. We wanted to start with this because this was actually a part of our process of talking through and working through the flow of this presentation. We kind of started with what technically, when inner and outer awareness is defined, like how do we usually hear about it before we actually experience it or practice it? So awareness, technical definition, the state or ability to perceive, to feel, or to be conscious of events, objects, or sensory patterns. And then also more of our kind of like personal definition, the lived experience of mindfulness in day-to-day life. Inner awareness, and this is more of a personal definition, clear perception and understanding of one's own inner landscape, achieved by neutral, mindful observation. And outer awareness, again, more of our personal definition, clear perception and understanding of the outer world, people, things, nature, environment, events, achieved by neutral, mindful observation. And also for context, we thought it'd be helpful to share different types of awareness: educational and informational, mindful and neutrally observational, and that extends to self-reflective and body, that's more inner awareness, experiential and interactional, more outer awareness, and then insightful and discerning, which is a more active and true awareness. And now I'm going to hand it back over to Seher to kind of go more into some of the nuances of these different types of awareness, because this is also just, I think, an integral part of just the broader understanding of awareness and the different types and how they're experienced.
Thanks, Eniafe. So I think that, we started with this technical definition of awareness, and it's just kind of like awareness can often be used synonymously with mindfulness. And in certain ways, you'll see us doing that here as well. But for me, I feel like in the most technical sense, mindfulness or awareness used, let's say, synonymously, is the inception point. It's the tool, it's the skill. But what does awareness mean when we're really teasing into it? And so that's where we really then start breaking that down into inner awareness, this observation, mindfulness happening in one's inner world, still through neutral, mindful observation. And then this outer awareness, scanning our environment, again, perhaps initially through this neutral observation. It's the information collection, inwardly and outwardly. And then, the few different types that we outlined are really just few. They're meant to be illustrative, but they are not at all meant to be exhaustive. So educational, informational, it's going to be things like books, podcasts, more technical information that we're taking in, let's say, book smarts and things like that, which has very much its own place. And then we have, once again, the mindful and neutrally observational awareness. So what we're doing when we're self-reflecting, thinking about ourselves, our life experiences, how we may have learned from something that we went through, or tracking our emotions, our beliefs, things like this. Then you have body awareness, which we got to kind of tap into a little bit with the centering exercise with Isit, right? Having the awareness of how does it feel, right? And then there can be the bridging of the mental, emotional, belief-oriented awareness and the body awareness, the body mind, how there's a confluence, how we somatize our beliefs, our traumas, our thoughts, all these things, right? So that's the inner awareness, one way of illustrating that. And then we have the experiential interactional awareness. What does it mean for this self and this body to be out in the world, in interaction with nature, in interaction with spaces, in interaction with other people, and so on and so forth, right? And so it's observing these interactions, it's observing how we orient with space, for better or for worse, our strengths and our challenges, right? And so again, we can keep this at the neutral level for starters, right? This is our starting point. We're kind of block building here. We're trying to take you through a journey. And then we have the insightful and discerning. And that's where we move from a mindful and neutral, just information, data collection, as neutrally as possible, to running that information through a filter that is both discerning and in a way still mindful, right? So there is this kind of bird's eye view that we're coming in with, and through this filter of discernment, we are gaining insights. And so that's where the neutral awareness, the mindful kind of mindfulness synonym, becomes a more active awareness, and what we together have come to call true awareness. And so that's going to take us into the next slide, because now we're block building into going towards liberation. So this is also part of the personal philosophy that we distilled in our time preparing for this. It was a really cool exercise for us too, because in certain ways, Eniafe and I realized that through our own respective experiences, we landed in similar kind of felt senses about like, yeah, this is where awareness is, and this is how it relates to liberation and our creative practices. But like, okay, how do we actually really like share this in explicit, clear words, so we, not expecting people to read our minds. And so this is the process that we went through. So true awareness, what is that? What's the difference between awareness as a synonym of mindfulness and what we're calling true awareness? True awareness is where mindful observation, which we spoke about a bit earlier, clear mindfulness, and discernment, clear values meet. So what do I mean by clear values in parentheses next to discernment? To me, discernment is a function of our value system, right? So we are not going to know what our filter is if we don't know what informs that filter. And to have, again, a higher vibrational place of how we're discerning, doing it in a way that is collectivist, liberation oriented, we want to have strong values, right? Values that feel collectivist and liberation centered and equity centered and things like that. So we're taking then this neutral observation and then we're running it through discernment using our values. And so that then births true awareness. And then what does true awareness lead to? We say it is both true awareness leads to and is the fertilizer for liberation, meaning true awareness is the ground upon which fertilizer, ground and the soil upon which liberation grows. It's where it blossoms, where we see the world that we want to see. So what's liberation, right? So I think that this is such a fun exercise to do with Eniafe, because we just have these like, oh yeah, this is this and that's that and whatever, but like we need to say what we mean, you know what I mean? And so this is I feel like I learned so much in preparing for this for all of you. So liberation, it means to us, and this is again not exhaustive, individual and collective freedom, equality, compassion, generosity, interdependence, collectivism, goodwill, prosperity, abundance, harmony, wholeness, truth, well-being, mutuality, and climate health. So wanting to see this all for individuals and for the collective alike. And that collective meaning the human collective, the animal collective, the plant collective, the climate collective. So from there, we're gonna have a little bit of a chat now about what awareness means to us, how it came into our lives, and how we apply it in our lives, and the benefits we've seen by applying awareness in our lives. So we're just gonna hit these one by one. So Eniafe, how did awareness come into your life?
So when I really sat down and, and thought about, the first time I was aware of myself in opposition to or in conjunction with, kind of like the world around me, and that play is growing up, being a little girl and coming home, talking about my day at school, interactions, and my mother kind of like asking me about, well, what did your teacher say? Or how did your friend feel? Or especially in maybe explaining kind of like emotional interactions with others. Well, how do you think what you said made them feel? Or, well, tell me what transpired. How did you interact, etc. And I think that's probably the first time that I realized, okay, I'm not the center, of the earth. I'm just kind of like one part. And there are other individuals, things to consider. And actually something I just thought of right now was the first time that I realized like plants were actually life beings as well. My grandfather had a lot of plants in the apartment that he lived in growing up. And one time, and he had like long vines. And one time I went to go sit down in a chair, and one of the vines was kind of like laying in the seat, and I sat on the vine, and he saw me and kind of did this like, you know, and I think I was maybe 5. And I, you know, I kind of like jumped at his expression. And he said, well, aren't you going to apologize? And I kind of, you know, looked at him and laughed, and then saw that he was serious. And he said, aren't you going to apologize to the plant? You know, you sat on a piece of its body. And I remember that moment so well, because not only like did he impress upon me with his reaction that this was a real, you know, living being, not like me, but in plant form. And it was to be treated, you know, as such, as if I had sat on somebody's hand or stepped on someone's toe. And so that's what I'd say. That's kind of like the first time that awareness came into play, you know, in adolescence, and then, you know, has progressed from there.
Every time I hear you talk about how your mother informed your awareness, I'm just like, man, what an awesome mom. It just sounds like she was like just so loving in the way that she really got you to put yourself in other people's shoes too. Like, parenting can look, I'm like, is this a parenting conversation? No, I'm not a parent. But like, parenting can look so many different ways, you know, and like sometimes it can be like very like authoritarian, or like, you know, punitive, or, you know, shaming or reprimanding. And it just sounds like your mom really came both with you and came from a place of compassion and explaining both towards you and towards other people, which I think is so beautiful too. And, you know, one of the virtues that can really come from being in awareness practice, it's like realizing that like your mom saw the humanity in you as a child needing to learn and grow in these ways, and was teaching you to see the humanity in other people. So I think she was such a beautiful emblem of awareness in her even teaching you awareness. So yeah, I'm always learning every time you talk about your mom and that anecdote. So thank you. I think for me, how I came to awareness, when hearing you talk about your mom, interestingly, I think for me, it's kind of a mix of probably my natural personality and proclivity towards awareness and introspection and things like that, but also my mom too. I realized my mom has always been into being very self-reflective, thinking about the condition of, you know, the human condition, you know, was like a fake psychologist growing up, and we joke about that. And somehow I turned into a fake psychologist too. So it's, yeah, I think and that's the inception point of where awareness practice came into my life. My personality has just been one of deeply reflecting on, how do I feel about this? What do I think about this? You know, inside of my own ecosystem, but also in my relation to the world. Why do I think that thing? Why did that thing make me feel that way? Why is that person acting that way? What got them to that place? Why do they think that? Why do we change our minds? I mean, you know, again, very deep into psychology, sociology, from a very just, you know, rough experiential sense. So that was kind of where it started for me, always thinking about myself and life and others and how we all just relate to one another and the why behind it all.
Yeah.
And then as I grew, it deepened into more of a formal practice, I would say, initially through therapy, where I learned about the body-mind connection, right? Where I was like, oh, our emotions and thoughts and traumas show up in our body. And I was like, whoa. And so that was a very tuned awareness that I came into through my body. And then from there, it just got me thinking in an even more subtler way about observing my thoughts and my emotions. And then that became further enhanced by mindfulness practice and other kinds of body-mind practices and energy work and all these different things. So now it's kind of, awareness has become almost like this whole ecosystem for me, really. So that's where I got started. And then how are we applying it in our lives? How has it shown up in your life application-wise, Eniafe?
So I think, I think it shows up everywhere, right? In relation to myself, in my, you know, professional world, in the art world, But I think I deepened my connection with awareness, and being fully and deeply mindful and purposeful, with it through my writing. I first and foremost write for myself. It's the way in which I kind of unravel my understanding of myself, and then also unravel understanding of situations that have transpired, emotions that I'm still grappling with. And then in sharing my writing and wanting to use my writing as a channel to connect with other individuals, I then, think about language and how everyone receives language differently, how one word and its meaning to me is a different meaning to someone else. And that led to consciously being aware of language and how language is received. So that's how I'd say awareness really began to like play a major role in my life, was through my art, and then in friendships, and in love ships, I'll say. When you are connecting very intimate and deeply with another person who comes from a different set of values, a different set of systems by which they were raised, environments they were raised within, etc. And how that plays, and listening, receiving, hearing, etc. So again, through it threads through all of my life, but I'd say definitely through my writing, and then my interpersonal relationships have highlighted it the most for me. What about you?
I'm just marinating on your answer. So yeah, I see it like the thread between like what you're saying about how your mom really broached and introduced awareness for you in helping you really understand how you're receiving people by helping you have more awareness of what their experience might be. And so it sounds like both through your writing and your relationships, there is again this like continuation of this deeper and more nuanced relational understanding, primarily in it sounds like the closer relationships in your life, and they've really been nurtured by that and brightened by that, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
For me, I would also say broadly in everything, like I said, awareness has almost become this like ecosystem that touches so many different parts that it almost evades words for me. For me, again, it's also this continuation of my natural proclivity to be thinking and observing and trying to draw insights from that all the time. So I'm constantly thinking about broadly just how I'm existing in the world, the things I was talking about earlier. How am I, what are my internal response systems doing? So that can be anything from instinctive reactions, default beliefs that I might be running, things that might be trauma triggers, and maybe it's not what my most aligned, authentic self it really is doing, is resonant with. Thinking about, trying to put myself in other people's shoes. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But I would say for me, there's definitely been a decided focus on my strength is more self-observation and how am I orienting to my environment. And I have definitely used a lot of putting myself in other people's shoes as well. But that's something that I feel like is still a growth edge for me. I think maybe for a lot of people that is, but yes. I think, yeah, you're like, yes, it's just not you. And I think for me particularly, it can be challenging to put myself in other people's shoes, not because I don't want to, but because I think when so many, I imagine so many people in this session today identify as being deeply sensitive feeling people in some sort of way. And so I definitely identify as that. I'm emotionally sensitive, I'm energetically sensitive, and sometimes I can just like drown in the world of my own feelings and thoughts. And I'm just like, so that is like my awareness energy is often getting taken up by just trying to navigate myself and like deal with like mental health, energetic health, you know, all the healths.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can take you out of like, you're kind of in your own drama. And yes, there are benefits to that, but then sometimes it can keep you from having as much awareness about where other people are at. So that's something that I still need to work on. And then a more specific anecdote about how I apply awareness in my life is a bit more on the nose in terms of the liberation discussion. So because we are talking about today how awareness ties with liberation, and that means so many different things, like we said, and as you'll see with the writing prompts we have to share with you in a bit. But for me, I just think that this is very salient. So as I'm Pakistani, like I shared earlier, and my social group, my closer social group and my broader social group for the last many years has been primarily Black folks. And I think that for many reasons, you know, that's kind of the social spaces I've ended up in. And being a child of immigrants, one of them is that you can be very kind of split and lost in your identities. I mean, very broadly, it can feel like maybe, you know, the split and the loss of belonging that, you know, mixed race folks might feel. And so for me, I found, I think from a very young age, a kind of a home in Black culture, Black community, knowing very well that I am not of that background myself. And so I think it was partially that sort of like, you know, this has been a gift, this, you know, culture and people have been a gift to me. And then also ever since I've been very young, you know, immigrant families sometimes, especially those from, you know, South Asia, I'll just speak for my own people for now, you know, there can be some internalized prejudices and things like that, unfortunately. And so I was very sensitized to that growing up too, being like, that's not right. Like I was disagreeing with my parents mad early. With all kinds of stuff. And I was like, no, you know. And so for a myriad of reasons, I have been hyper tuned to and curious about what does the Black experience mean as someone who's not Black but someone who benefits from Black culture, from and from inclusion in primarily Black spaces. And so for me, where this shows up so profoundly in liberation work is, you know, okay, we can, you know, call it allyship, not my favorite word all the time, but just to get the point across. I am a slow reader, and you know, I can't really say that I've read the books like I want to, but it's not my forte. But awareness is a forte, a natural forte and blessing of mine. And so the ways that I've showed up to be an ally, and really like ally is like to be a human, to be a human that's invested in equity and freedom and liberation for all, as Isit was talking about earlier, it is to really deeply observe my Black peers and communities' experiences, collectively, individually, bumping that up against how, you know, am I showing up in those narratives in problematic ways, in subtle ways of what, you know, instinctive beliefs or reactions of mine might be maybe in my most private dialogue that no one ever hears, and constantly iterating, constantly readjusting, constantly data, you know, gathering from the informational, factual, to the emotional, to the experiential, to really understand how must this be for others, and how am I contributing to the problem, and how can I show up better, even where I'm not necessarily contributing to the problem, but how can I be even better part of a solution? And I mean, this is a very wide, broad journey, but I will say it has been helpful to the point where I have been able to step up and, you know, educate people where, you know, my Black friends were really exhausted, you know, during the 2020 uprising. I had the observational awareness ability to write a blog post about, you know, how my Black folks were exhausted about their white friends hitting them up about, how are you feeling? And I had my a lot of my Black friends and their friends use that blog post to just send it to people so they don't have to explain it, you know? And that's one example. And you know, there are others, but I think that this is an example of how potent experiential awareness can really be, to the point where people have said to me, like, you know, it sounds like you read the books. And I'm like, no. And again, I'm not proud of that, but I think Eniafe, we were talking about, and I love to hear from you about this, like when we've talked about this before, about, you know, the experiential awareness has its place, and so do the books, you know, and how do they all work together?
Absolutely. And one thing that always comes into mind when we just go deep dive into this conversation about awareness, what it is, how, you know, kind of like how it develops, is two things. Awareness takes, I think, a particular type of curiosity. You know, there's a desire to want to know, to not assume, but more so to hear about, to experience, to just, there's a big level of curiosity and awareness. And I think also in that is, there also has to be a deep awareness or mindfulness of the fact that we don't know everything. And even sometimes what we know may not be the extent of what there is, you know, what there is to know. And so there's always more to know. And there's like an openness in that. And sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. What did you first ask me before I went back into my curiosity point?
No, I love the curiosity piece. I was talking about how you have in our prior conversations threaded together the importance of the book awareness and the experiential awareness.
Yeah, I mean, I think both do different things for different people. I, as a by race, you know, Black person, my father Nigerian, my mother American, there's certain things that if I pick up a book and I read, it'll be like, okay, like you're telling me about myself. However, and this is the interesting thing about the difference between culture, race, heritage, and I don't want to go off on a tangent, but I immediately thought about this now. Just because I am racially fit into this box does not mean that I then understand the story and experience of a Black person who, say, grew up in Louisiana in the 1930s, who may have been born to a, like I'll parallel, born to an African father and an American mother. Yes, there's some things that are similar, but there are some things that are very different. And so they have a level of awareness that was built experientially that I'm not going to have, but that they may be able to impart in me through experience, through conversation with one another, or that is imparted to me through reading something, you know. So, and each is going to give you a different set of information.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also it's very important to know like how we receive and how we retain information, and how information really like sits with us. Like you said, you're not a reader, but you are a conversationalist.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how information, you know, sits with you. And so even I think, you know, as a consumer, some people, they are readers. And so they will consume and retain and just really feel deeply something that they've read, while others may consume, retain, and feel deeply something that they see through art, while others may feel deeply something that they actually do, that's, you know, interactive. So planting seeds, you know, seeing how different things affect the earth and climate and whatnot. So it's all very different. No one type of awareness kind of like trumps the others. And another thing I'll say, and I know we're hitting our time on our conversation, is that there's no cap to awareness. I think oftentimes, especially when we look at things from like an educational standpoint, there's it's like school. You go to school, you do your, you know, your first through 12th grade, you graduate, you matriculate, boom, 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 and then you're kind of done. But with awareness, it's an ever evolving thing. There's no cap, there's no ends. Like, okay, I've reached the pinnacle of awareness, I'm done. It's always,
Yeah.
it's everlasting. And I think for me, and we can get into this, I think just like really quickly, the benefits that we've seen by applying awareness in our lives is that's for me, one thing is I think it helps me keep a very keen understanding of what growth is and healing is and grieving is. Anything in life that's this perpetual, state. It helps remind me that like I don't reach an end to it. And I think sometimes, especially in like healing and grieving more so, or mourning, sometimes it's like, why am I still like, when is it going to be the end? But it's like, no, because there's an awareness in grieving. There's an awareness. There's an awareness in all those things. And so that awareness just keeps going. And so growth keeps going. And so it's not about when is this going to end? It's like, okay, I'm kind of going up the spiral staircase. And so, all right, I've excelled to, this next level, or I'm circling this particular level because there's still a level of awareness that, I'm kind of like ascending or transcending through. And I want to ask that same question to you. What are the benefits? I mean, you just talked about it, but outside of that, what are some of the benefits that you've seen?
Yeah. Before I get into that really quickly, just reflecting back what you've said, I mean, I think that there's so many ways that we can draw in information, like we were talking about that neutral observation point of awareness, and whether it's through books or experiences and things like that. But again, that when we start moving that through towards liberation is when we again run that information through discernment. That discernment brings us insights, and then what do we do with those insights, right? And so I think when we've talked before about the books or even experiential observation, if you have the insights and then you just sit on them, but don't apply them in your life or iterate your behavior or iterate and evolve your thoughts, your beliefs, then it's not liberatory, right? So it's like the applied awareness part is also what I would say encompasses true awareness. And so that's leading us into the benefits of awareness conversation, which I'll share on my end. So awareness helps me understand the certain ways I think, feel, and behave. I have some notes here in interest of time. I'm just going to kind of run through them real quick. Where I'm coming from distortion or misalignment, and then bringing myself closer to alignment, to truth, to liberation, justice, all these different values that I'm centering myself in, the what, why, and how of the ways that I oppress myself, and being in constant examination of that, and like I said, iterative adjustment. And so ultimately, this is allowing me to be more compassionate and fair with myself and others, how your mother so beautifully demonstrated, like we were talking about earlier. Being in awareness helps me deepen into nuance, non-duality, open-mindedness, and the both and. It frees me from the binary and black and white frameworks. It helps me leave space for not knowing, having the beginner's mind, and allowing my strongly held beliefs to be wrong, allowing anything to be wrong, allowing myself to begin again, start fresh. It helps me understand that perception and wisdom come in many different forms. And so leaving space for the different wisdoms from different perceptions. And just ultimately, it's improved my relationship with myself and others in all areas of my life. And it helps me through this kind of openness, open myself to so much more possibility in my life with and without.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's no absolution. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so we are going to jump into the writing exercise, which is really, writing is the medium, but ultimately it is to, like we said, somewhere in the course materials talking about this. This is actually going to be us as a collective through doing these exercises, embodying and living liberation through awareness, through actually thinking about how we're showing up in the world. This is us actively doing the work together. So Eniafe, do you want to guide us through the intention?
Yes. Absolutely. So the intention of this exercise is to guide us in reflection and support us in showing up as a more conscious conduit for liberation by helping, I'll say, one another become more aware of our own thoughts and feelings and how these thoughts and feelings impact ourselves as others. And so we have here two separate categories writing prompts. So the first category is understanding your own thoughts and feelings. And the second is understanding your thoughts and how your thoughts and feelings impact you as well as others. So, what we'd like to do at this time is for everyone to choose one question from each of these categories to take some time and reflect on and to answer. It's better, I think, if you write pen to paper. But if you are quicker with expressing your thoughts on like your computer, your iPad, your phone, in the notes section, however you best like flow through your thoughts. But again, you only need to choose one question from each of these categories. So the first category, the two questions, and this is understanding your own thoughts and feelings. The first question is, what is something you thought you definitely knew in life and later realized that maybe it wasn't so simple or so black and white? So again, that's what is something you thought you definitely knew in life and later realized that maybe it wasn't so simple or so black and white. And question two in this category is, what is an area of your life where your unconscious thoughts, actions, and beliefs tend to run on autopilot? So without you even really thinking about them. And how could you bring more intentionality and awareness into these areas of your life? So again, what is an area of your life where your unconscious thoughts, actions, and beliefs tend to run on autopilot? How can you bring more intentionality and awareness into these areas of your life? So again, just choose one of those questions to reflect on and answer. And then the second category, understanding how your thoughts and feelings impact you as well as others. The first question is, what was a meaningful moment where taking the time to exercise awareness completely transformed your outlook? How did that experience impact your self-understanding and how you show up in the world? Again, what was a meaningful moment where taking the time to exercise awareness completely transformed your outlook? How did that experience impact your self-understanding and how you show up in the world? Second question here, how does it feel when someone else is witnessing you from a place of judgment versus a place of neutrality or openness? Knowing this, how could you be more mindful in receiving others, their realities and ideas from a more mindful and nuanced place? And again, that question is, how does it feel when someone else is witnessing you from a place of judgment versus a place of neutrality or openness? And knowing this, how could you be more mindful in receiving others, their realities and ideas from a more mindful and nuanced place?
Awesome. So we'll keep up this screen for y'all to look at if you would like while the writing's going on. And Eniafe, what do you say about taking the writing till about 5 past the hour? So 8:05 Eastern or 5:05 Pacific. And then we'll take about 15 minutes from 5 past the hour to 20 past the hour for sharing. And then the final 10 minutes will be the Q&A. Does that sound cool?
That sounds good.
Okay, so whatever your time zone is, 5 past the hour, roughly, you'll have to write. So that's maybe like 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Well,
Just, yes. Yeah. And of course, like, no right or wrongs here. This is a, you know, this is a free flow, no judgment zone, as I say. And if there's any questions that you might have about these questions, and you want to drop them in the chat, please feel free to do so if there's any clarity that you might need. Just doing a quick check-in on time. So we are at 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. So we've got about 5 more minutes of writing time. So I'd say if you haven't started on the second question, um, if you feel you've fleshed out your thoughts enough on the first, you can begin on the second.
This is Seher. Just a quick note also, if you feel like there's a lot you want to get out and writing sentences is too laborious, just write like, you can write like bullet notes, fragments, keywords, you know what that means to you. And that way you can still get all your thoughts out, but a bit maybe quicker. All right, folks, we're at 5:05 Pacific, 8:05 Eastern. So we're going to give you a bonus minute, roughly. Take this final minute. If it's not done, just think about it from an expansive perspective. You'll have more to reflect on later. So this doesn't have to be the end of your personal practice with these questions or in general. All right, we're at 7 past the hour. So again, you can continue this on your own time. If you feel like you have more to write, that's awesome. We're going to get now into the sharing portion. So if you do have more to write, I would request that you put it on a little bit of a pause, because the next part of our time together is not only going to be about sharing. So there might be a little bit of a temptation to continue writing once the sharing has begun. So again, part of this practice, this embodied practice, was doing the reflections that we just did. And now the extension and the final part of this practice is going to be to witness others, meaning really being present with that listening of other people's experiences, right? So we're inviting those who would like to, everyone, we're inviting to be witnesses, to hold loving and respectful space for all sharers, to listen intently and thoughtfully, honestly consider what is being offered, notice where you relate and where you can create spaciousness and openness where you don't relate. And then we're also inviting whomever would like to be witnessed and share if you're called. And this can go a couple different ways, or yet a third or fourth way if something else comes to you. What insights came out of your writing prompt reflection? So specifically, what were your insights? And then a bit more broadly or subtly, how did the process actually feel? How did you feel going through this awareness practice? Some examples might be surprised, upset, defensive, resistant, amused, confused, grateful, curious, and on and on and on and on. It can also be what came up in your body, like whatever feels good. So how we're going to do this is in a couple different ways to respect different kinds of sharing styles. Since we are all kind of new in this container that we have for this 90-minute session, is if you would like to speak and be invited on either audio and or on camera, you can keep your camera off if you want. Go ahead and raise your hand if you want to share. And the raise hand is at probably going to be on the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it right away, hit the more, and there might be an option there for raising your hand. Miles might have a note for us there. How can I shut off closed captions? That might be for the Kripalu team.
Yes, if you would like to turn off the closed caption, if you go to the bottom of your toolbar and click either the more or the 3 dots for the ellipsis option, the menu that pops up will say hide subtitle, and that will turn off the captions for you. And that's also where you'll find the reactions on that bottom toolbar, or either located under the more or 3 dotted option.
Awesome. So where the reactions, Miles, thank you so much. And one of the participants also called it out, is where you can raise your hand. And sometimes on some interfaces, maybe on mobile or something, if you go to participants tab, there might be a raise hand option somewhere there as well. So that's one way if you'd like to speak on camera and or audio. And the other way you can share is in the chat, and we'll read those out loud. So I know that this is a new space for all of us together here, and it's a vulnerable practice to share in a new space in general, and to share something so intimate is all the more. So we honor that.
And it looks like we have Anne as our first hand up.
Perfect. So, Anne, would you, if you want to put in the chat, if you want to, watch, let's just unmute you.
There you are.
I'm unmuted
There you are.
already.
Okay, I was gonna ask you.
Yeah, I don't know why my camera goes off, but it does all by itself. I chose part 2 of the first question. Where'd you go? Can you bring it back? The questions.
Oh, yeah. There it
Thanks.
is.
So I am on autopilot with unconscious thoughts and actions and beliefs when I am anxious and fearful. So that's generally when my mind takes off, and my tools are to just try and stop, try not to speak, and to calm down by focusing on my breathing, or just really stopping and waiting for it to pass, because it does. You know, the minute I calm down, the immediacy kind of passes. So I guess calming down would be the first thing, and quieting my mind and my breath. On the second one, what was a meaningful moment? I was pregnant with my first child. There was probably another one before this, but this is the one that popped into my mind. And my mom's cancer had come back. So I was bringing a new life into the world for the first time, and she was dying. She was only given 6 months to a year. And somebody said to me, try yoga. So this is like 22 years ago. And I was like, all right. And at the end of yoga, when we were in Shavasana, the instructor said, take a moment to realize that you did this for yourself today. And that kind of was like, what? You know, like it was like a real kind of light bulb moment where I realized that self-care had to be a part of my life. Like it had to be front and center. And I guess I was present because it was yoga and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So like my mind couldn't wander. Not with a belly and trying to do poses, you know, so I was really present. So that just hit me. And like I said, that was 22 years ago. And that was such a simple thing that she said, you know, nothing phenomenal, but it hit me in a lovely way. So those are my responses.
Thank you, Anne. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I think your response to the first one definitely resonates. You know, we go into autopilot when there's so much emotion. We can't think first necessarily. You know, we kind of just go into the thinking or the acting that comes most naturally, or that we're most used to. I definitely resonate with that.
Yeah, it's like when our stress responses go on, you know, whether that's anxiety or anger or some of those more intense emotions, like literally parts of our brain shut down, like certain ones slow down and other parts speed up, you know. Yeah. So for sure. And that somatic and intellectual simultaneous awareness of like, oh, this is the thing that's happening. Let me course correct, that's clutch. super clutch. So anyone else want to put in the chat or raise your hand? Oh, we have Alicia, yay. And then we have a comment too that we'll read afterwards from Newton. So Alicia, we're pinning you on. And
Hello. Let me see if I can take my camera
yay,
off.
Alicia. Nice to meet
Yes, Alicia. Yes, hi, nice to meet everybody.
Hi.
So I did exercise 1, question 1, and we'll see if this was done correctly or if it's hitting. So what came to pop in my mind was cheating. And so the idea that I had in my head of a cheater, or why a person would possibly cheat in a relationship, it just felt very selfish. A person who was selfish, they were emotionally manipulative, maybe they were cold, even disloyal. And so all of those things I completely felt like did not describe me, or so I thought, until I felt myself cheating to stay in a relationship. So I wasn't running from it. I found out my partner was cheating on me. And so I didn't want to leave my partner, and I didn't want to leave that situation. And so I guess to not feel like I was breaking from the pain, and also for me to feel empowered in that situation and try to reclaim some of that on my own, what I did in that situation was to go out and then cheat, but to keep my relationship. And so for me, looking at this question, it's like it wasn't as simple as it seemed. It wasn't so black and white. And I never considered, when I thought of a cheater and maybe those characteristics that come with that, I didn't see myself as that, but I was in that situation. And so I think the last question you had asked was, how did it feel writing this? It felt freeing. Like it was kind of like a label that I didn't want to associate myself with. And it was just like, nah, girl, you gotta be real. That's you right now. Or that was you. You're not in it now, but that was you. So just freeing.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I love that. You know, I really love that one because, you know, I was raised by Pakistani immigrant parents, like I said, raised Muslim. It can be very conservative cultures. With a lot of conservative cultures can come a lot of judgmentalness, something that I've had to work on a lot. And one of the biggest lessons of my life continues to be, you know, I would think, especially when I was younger, so think things about certain types of people or people who did certain types of things. And then years later, I would be the person that does that thing or did that thing. And it's like, oh, okay, it's not just this or that, you know? So that's where I really connected with it.
And let me see, I am looking for, here we go, the response that was written in. Okay, so from the first question, this response is to question number 1 for the first category, question number 1. Time and time again, I realize my understanding is wrong. Background. Early in life, I had the impression that a goal in life was to learn everything. Eventually, we were supposed to know everything. Ultimately, I have come to this realization. There's an infinite amount to know in the universe. I have some understanding of a tiny amount of this, and everything I know, my understanding is wrong. This is actually something that my mom says often. My mom is going to be 72 this year. And she positions it kind of like wisdom. You really come into kind of true wisdom when you realize that there's more of what you don't know than what you do know. And everything you thought you knew is everything you are unlearning to know. And so that definitely resonates with me as well, for sure.
Yeah, thank you for that, Newtons. Where I'm hearing that is in where I was sharing one of the benefits of what I felt like awareness was for me is that the openness to be wrong. The beginner's mind, the knowing that there are wisdom and multiple simultaneous truths, and sometimes my dearest truths might be totally even wrong, on a level, or maybe all levels, or many levels. And so
or that was like something that was true then and may still be true now, but also this too. Like you're saying, like all of those and also etc.
I don't know why, but I'm getting the visual of that concept about they talk about the spiral, like healing can be like a spiral, and it's like coming back upon the same moment, but coming back upon it differently. So it's not exactly the same, right? And so that can also be like, when you said that, like it was true then, but might not be true now, or might be true now differently or to a different degree, and all of that. I will say, what do you think, Eniafe? Do we want to jump into the Q&A, or do we want to try to take one more person? We have technically 9 minutes before it's closed.
I think, is there, if there's one more that would like to share, raise your hand or drop a comment. And I think, there we go.
Oh, awesome. Yeah.
And then after this, if we can jump in.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, we're gonna pin you. Go ahead. Oh,
okay, there we go. Okay. Hello, thank you. You got my name right. I was like, oh, she's Alicia. Okay, so usually people are like, how do you say that? How do you? So I'm doing the first question with the second part of it. And as soon as I read it, I literally wrote down in my journal, I was like, my Blackness. Because I feel like it's an unconscious area of my life, but something that's unavoidable. So like that's, based on someone's judgments or bias, their observations, or categorizations. Like that's the first thing that you meet and greet, and the last thing that probably leaves when I leave. And so I imagine that as like, it's my shield, but also my armor. So I see it as something that it's my shield in a sense where it's my defense. So like, that's what I'm going to lean on. If I need support, that's what I'm going to lean on. If it's like, again, that unconscious thought of like, well, is it because I'm Black? So I'm wondering if that's what's happening here. And that's kind of where my mind goes, or is it my armor and it's my protection? And so I need it as like a self-protective device to keep me safe. And in a state where being Black isn't always a feeling of safety, like that's the first thing that came to mind was like, how do I balance this and manage that feeling when there's so many things that are wrapped up in it? There's so many biases, there's so many judgments, there's so many feelings. And I was actually asked to sit on a board of a new organization. And during that conversation, she was describing kind of the thought that she hoped that the members on her board would have and why she picked each of us to be there. And she said something about Black Girl Magic that has stuck with me since then. And the fact that in some instances, it's become the new version of like Black women being super strong, and how on the one hand, it can be something that offers this sense of like strength and the sense of empowerment and the sense of pride. And on the other can sometimes create a misconception that if you're not presenting in that way, then are you seen as soft, or are you seen as weak, or are you seen as something other than? And so I went back and forth, and as I was journaling, and then the question of like, how did I feel about this? I was like, I don't know. Like, I feel like there's always this juxtaposition of what am I supposed to be like and how should I be versus what I think I might be and what I am. And how do I identify with someone who's other, someone who's different? And the second question, I had done a presentation in grad school many years ago. I was in grad school in the social work department. I had to do a presentation on transgendered individuals, and it was a policy class, coincidentally. So we had to find policy that was related to that. So whether it be marriage, whether it be applying for public assistance, whether it be insurance, like any policies that related to that, and how the differences, the level of awareness, the language, the resources, how there just wasn't any. Like it wasn't a population that people knew enough about. It wasn't something people were talking enough about. There was a lot of, again, judgments and biases, and how out of that presentation came a different, I think, learn for loving that type of population and cultures and differences, and kind of dismissing my own biases because it wasn't something I knew enough about. And so even though like I walk into a room and this is what you see is me being this Black girl. How individuals in that population that I didn't know anything about, ignorantly enough, I had to then step into that world and then try to create some understanding and try to create some information, because I'm doing this presentation. I'm supposed to come from an expert opinion on opinions that I don't know anything about. And so again, it made me feel like that armor and that shield came right back up in that class, and having to then defend something that I didn't understand. And how that then made me feel that like I could totally defend my Blackness. Like I can identify who I am, and some people take offense to that, and some people then go on the defense about it. But that in a topic that I wasn't as familiar with, I still had to present that same way. I still had to be on the defensive and like be on the offensive at the same time.
I love the thoroughness, Misha.
Yeah.
So good. I really appreciate it. As a Virgo, Virgo Sun, Virgo Mercury, if that means anything to anyone, all the details. Eniafe.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. You said a lot that I didn't even know that I felt. And I don't want to get into our additional Q&A time, but that offered me some food to think about. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, agreed. Afia in the comments says, thanks for those who shared. Thank you for listening, Afia and everybody else. Thank you for sharing, everyone who shared. I feel like we could make a whole session out of just this sharing. It's just so lovely, my favorite. So Isa, if you want to come and kick us off for the Q&A, and Eniafe and I are open to staying, let's say 10 past, so 5:40, 8:40. So for those who need to go right at 5:30, 8:30, feel free, and you can catch the recording. And for those who can stay, join us for a little bit extended Q&A.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, it's been so amazing to hear it from everyone. Thank you for these thought-provoking questions and this inquiry work. It's super rich. So yes, this is an opportunity for Q&A for those who have some more time. So if there's anything that wants to be asked at this moment, please do feel free to pop it in the chat, and or again, you can raise your hand. And we will support your answer being shared.
And also, I want to say, if there's not necessarily a question, but just someone wanting to, share, so how this session felt, what it brought up for them, this is space for that too.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. That it can be whatever you feel called to bring into the space. Mm-hmm. If it's where it's meant to go, we can continue with the shares. But for the questions, since we offered kind of inspo for all the different other pieces of this presentation, for Q&A, you can ask about our individual awareness practices. You can ask more about our definitions of awareness. How, we can have more of a convo about how awareness and liberation tie to each other. Really, whatever you would like. This time is for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Alicia, see is raising your hand, and also Afia.
Hello, back again. My question is, and I'll just toss it out there so anyone can answer, but what inspired you to get into this specific line of work with tying the liberation and awareness?
I'll let Seher answer that.
Okay, cool. So I feel like I'll answer whatever comes up for me right now in this moment. And then also what might be interesting for you is, Alicia, the the IG live that we did on Kripalu that saved with Isid. Isid asked some questions about how we kind of relate all these concepts together. Thank you, Judy. Have a lovely evening. So for me, it was just kind of like I said, ever since I was younger, I've had this just curiosity, this introspection, this natural kind of awareness practice before even knowing what it was. And then also this very passionately oriented justice and equity and fairness value system, even in the light of, coming up in a South Asian community of, immigrants that sometimes felt kind of racist and like, just things that, and maybe that's what sparked it and centered it more. And so for me, the more I came into my healing work, like I said, through therapy, body mind work, mindfulness work, for me, I just came to really realize that for me, healing work is liberation work, coming into transmuting our wounds and alchemizing our belief systems and our traumas and things. That is liberation to me. It is liberation of the self, and the more the self is liberated into the truth of what the essence of the human fabric is, which is, in my belief, all the virtues, right? The more we can come into the true fabric of who we are as humans through healing, which for me in large part is through awareness work, the more that we can be liberated ourselves and be conduits for liberation in the world, the more we can exist as our aligned selves, which means that we are then more so conduits for the virtues, which to me are the same as synonymous with liberatory values. So the more we're coming with compassion, or another way I call it is a healing ethos, liberatory values, the virtues, right? So we're coming with compassion, we're coming with empathy, we're coming with humility. I mean, on and on and on, right? Fairness. But when we can truly embody and live these values, both in our inner world and how we're expressed in the outer world, then we have a just world. And to me, the symptom, if you get down to the root of what's wrong in our world in all the different ways, I mean, all the way from how we treat each other interpersonally and one-on-one interactions to sociopolitically to climate-wise, it's all a function of us operating out of alignment, us operating from our wounds, as far as I'm concerned. And so that doesn't mean that healing is the only answer, and awareness work as a focal practice of healing is the only answer. Yes, we need to do things in our, in politics and in our various institutions across the board. But to me, the root of it is really this deep healing work. And so for me, that's the through line. And Afia, we are going to bring you on and pin you.
Thank you, Afia.
Yeah.
Thank you both for everything you offered. It's been great, and also to the participant sharing. It rang true for me when you were speaking about the self-awareness being easier. I echoed that belief, and I'll, I guess, ask a little bit more about how to do better with, sort of external awareness. And I'll say, from my personal experience, I mean, it might help to respond to the question a bit. Sometimes self-awareness can be self-critical, and as such, like potentially hyper aware of how much more awareness there is to have. And it just can be complicated. Yeah, so I don't, and the whole emotional thing, because that can be so heavy sometimes when there is an awareness that there's so much to be sensitive to, and how you move,
manage,
and not, just being stuck in all of that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think it's interesting. I have therapy on Wednesday night. So my session with my therapist was yesterday, and at the end of the session, he said, "Go slow." He was like, "Just go slow." I think for me, I'll answer it in two parts. How to not take it into kind of like that being critiquing yourself and then being negative, is just sometimes it's more of just putting a question out there and not expecting self or even someone else, if you are interacting with someone, to have an immediate response. Sometimes it's like, okay, let me sit with this. Let me feel my way through this. Let me give myself time. Let me go easy. Let me go slow. Don't beat myself up if I don't have an immediate answer. Because the fact is, you're asking yourself for a reason. You're asking yourself because you kind of, you want to like, you want to explore, you want to excavate. So we're not going to be able to immediately answer. And then even the answer, just let the answer kind of like sit and breathe, and don't feel the need to analyze the answer as well, unless you feel that there's a need, to do that. And then in regards to kind of like, how do you not get stuck in like a rabbit hole or go too far, too fast, too deep, where it just becomes too heavy. I think for me, it's really paying attention to my physical responses, and checking in with myself. So when I really start feeling heavy and overwhelmed, knowing like, okay, I can step back now, and also giving myself permission to step back. I think sometimes we don't often acknowledge how grueling the healing work can be and awareness work can be, and how hard that may be on our emotional systems. And we want to do the work, we want to do the work, we want to do the work, and so it becomes a bit exhaustive, which then can backfire at times. And so again, for me, it's realizing that I have time and I have the space, and I give myself that permission to take my time and know there is no absolution here. So it's like I ain't got to get to the healing and complete all the work, by January 2023. It's not that. It's actually that as long as I am in process, like perpetually in process, and the fact that I'm even aware enough, to know that, okay, there's a question here, there's a feeling here, there's something that I want to address. Like that is a huge part of it. Even knowing that there is something there to address, and the desire to address it, and also sitting in celebration and in gratitude of myself too. I think that's something that my therapy and healers around me always remind me of, is like, have you sat in gratitude? Did you thank your body today for the weight that it carried? Did you thank your heart today for the ways that it, broke open? Did you thank your mind today for the ways that it has expanded? Did you thank your voice today for the ways that it spoke up to, for you? The different things like that. So super like layered and nuanced question, but those would be some kind of points for me.
I'd love to add a bit to that as well. Yeah, it's this nuanced thing, and I think this is where we become so hyper wrapped up in our inner processes or inner awareness, what can turn into self-criticism. I feel like we were talking about, it's almost like we kind of projectify ourselves. We become the project, we become the person who is always, yes, things are a process, but then sometimes it's like my brothers sometimes tell me, everything's a process, everything like it's almost like everything's become a work type thing, like Eniafe is saying, and so where do we find the nuance and break out of the binary of it's a process, it's work, I'm a work in progress versus wholeness, right? Where can we find the balance between I am already whole, my essential nature is whole? And so for me, this is a way to, the invitation here is you can even use awareness once again to pull you out of it. So where we're getting really too deep into it and too tunnel vision, we are in the weeds of awareness. And yes, there's merit for that. But what we want to do is come into the bird's eye view of awareness, right? And the bird's eye view of awareness is I'm a freaking human being. I'm whole. I deserve compassion and love, especially my own. So when you get too much into fixer, healer, in the weeds, self-criticism phase, self-love the shit out of yourself and all the tools you know how, and just be in your body. Being in your body is a big thing too, because I'm in my head a shit ton. So I'll just offer those as well. Thank you for the lovely question, Afia. So we're right up on time. If Eniafe and Isit are okay with it, I'd love for us to just quickly address what's in the comments, and then we can call it a night. Isit, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can, you were sort of starting to speak to part of Brad's question a bit of, he's saying, would love to hear more about autopilot and awareness while living in the hustle and productivity driven culture. Space sometimes feels like a luxury and space feels important to welcome awareness. So i.e. working in healthcare or being in survival mode. So if we want to touch on that.
Yeah, for me, I'll quickly just add a very similar thing of just practicing things like kindness and compassion, and knowing that it doesn't have to look any specific sort of way. And knowing that these simple self-care things that can feel like a luxury, you're allowed luxuries, and the luxury can be 1 minute. It can be 30 seconds. And so really relaxing the expectations you have on yourself there, what that even has to look like. Eniafe, do you have anything there?
No, my thinking was on that same line. And I agree with that.
Eniafe, do you want to take the final question from Austin about attracting a community that's into awareness, being in a small town?
Let me just go to that question really quick.
I'll just share for if folks can't see the chat after that.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Asking, how do you attract others interested in seeking this deeper awareness in the world we're living in today, finding it challenging in a new small town during the pandemic?
I'm going to actually admit that I don't necessarily have an answer for that. That's a hard thing, and us still being in a pandemic makes it even harder. Because we're still so much operating in our own kind of silos. And so crossing paths with like-minded, like energy individuals it still has its challenges. I'll say that for me, I started to attract more like mind, like energy once I really began to be more of my full self. And that's kind of another tangent, but I've moved through much of my life being pieces and parts of myself depending on what environment I was in, and what role I needed to play, where I felt safe, not even really feeling safe inside myself. And so I was attracting more what was like in what I was presenting, but not what was like actually me and underneath the surface. And so as I began to feel safe inside myself and bring those other parts of me out to just really exist energetically and exist in conversation and interaction with others, then I began to attract, more of like individuals. But yeah, maybe Seher, you have more on that, because that's even still hard for me right now. I don't have quite the answer.
I'd also say you're at Kripalu right now, and communities.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly the type of place to find people who are interested in awareness. Because also to Brad's point, it's the daily practice that's going to support you in those moments when there's no space and there's no time. We practice together and we practice on our own, so that when we get into the world, the practice continues in all the real world moments. So communities like Kripalu and other communities of practice are wonderful places to find folks who are very interested in awareness.
Exactly. And to that point, I'll just in closing say we can do a little experiment if the Zoom can stay on for maybe a minute. If you feel comfortable, Austin, anyone else feels comfortable, everyone here is interested in awareness. So anyone who wants to connect with, virtually is great. If you don't have people in person for now, put your IG, your Twitter, your email, Austin or anyone else. And those are the people who want to make community around awareness. So go ahead and put that in the chat and we can maybe close out the night on that note.
I love it. I love that. Thank you so much. It was really beautiful. And I loved, I believe it was Susan who just said that she so appreciated this because she feels like awareness at this depth is not often examined or exercised and just missing in society as a whole. So, we talk so much about, these concepts, awareness, liberation, like big concepts, but the opportunity to just spend a couple hours really drilling into like, what does this actually mean for me in my life, practiced and applied is really very deeply enriching. So thank you both so much. It was tremendous to be with you and all of you in community. Thank you. Folks are popping stuff in the chat. Miles put in how to find out more about Eniafe and Seher's work, where to find them, where to follow them, where to engage with them, and to please keep joining us for the rest of this series. It's really special. You'll get a recording sent out in the next 24 hours. And for those of you who are watching this on recording, we're so happy to be with you too. We feel you in the field, even if you weren't here tonight. So thanks for tuning in and signing up. And yeah, it was just incredible. So let's maybe just take a final deep breath together and allow all of this inquiry to just begin to inform and integrate into ourselves. We are constantly in formation and we received a lot of information tonight. So let's just take a few deep breaths and allow the integration to settle in our bodies at the cellular level. Imagining that with each breath, your awareness is expanding, integrating, and forming at every level. And again, just blessing yourself with gratitude for showing up tonight, for being present, and gifting yourself with this time. And for Seher and Eniafe, thank you so much for gifting us your presence, your heart, your wisdom. We're so grateful. Coming back into the space. Blessings to everyone on their journeys, wherever you're going from here, knowing that we've all been gifted here together. So thank you. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Miles and Autumn, and to the community.
Much gratitude. Thank you, everyone.
Likewise. Thank you to everyone here. Everyone who was here earlier, who's here now. The whole Kripalu team was really, really awesome. And please attend the rest of the series. Kripalu has put, and all the presenters have put so much heart into this. And this is a really, really beautiful gift. Thank you.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.